Hello, I'm Simon. What is simple harmonic motion? The definition of SHM is when a body moves in such a way that its acceleration is directly proportional to its displacement from a fixed point, such that the acceleration is pointed always to its equilibrium point. If you have no idea what I said or what I mean, we're going to put this into plain English. We'll be looking at situations where SHM is true and break down the definition from there. In this frame, we can see the pendulum is at its furthest point away from its equilibrium point. The equilibrium point is where the bob would be if there had been no forces pushing on it. Here it's facing the largest amount of acceleration we get throughout the entire of the swing, pointed this direction. But as you can see, it's pointed back to where it started. Another factor we should take into account is that in this fraction of a second, the bob is perfectly still. It's not moving in any direction. Meanwhile, in this frame, the bob is back at its equilibrium point. The pendulum is facing no acceleration. However, this is where it will be getting the highest amount of speed before it starts decelerating again. What I explained here is the definition of SHM. See, when the bob was at the furthest point away from the equilibrium point, it was also facing the largest amount of acceleration it will get throughout the entire swing. But also, it was pointed in the opposite direction to where placement was, which shows the fact that they're proportional to each other, but reversed. Meanwhile, speed, which I pointed at also, was at zero when acceleration and placement was at the highest, and at its maximum when it was acceleration and displacement was at zero. The effect that we shown above can also affect other systems such as spring mass systems and so on and so forth. But we don't have time here, so you just have to trust me with this. But now we know what SHM is. Why do we need it? Simple harmonic motion is used in many aspects of life. For instance, when constructing buildings. If a structural engineer ignored the effects of SHM, then great mistakes could happen. A few such incidences that roll from my mind would be the Millennium Bridge, which was closed for a number of weeks because the people's footsteps were causing it to shake too much. But the better example would be an American bridge, of the bridge called the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. When it was first built, the users noticed that the bridge swayed when they drove over it. They had no idea why, but it swayed. It was more of an enjoyable ride, I guess. When the bridge was built, the users noted that the bridge wobbled, but they considered it more enjoyable than dangerous. Until one day, the gust of wind changed direction to be perpendicular to the bridge. The gust blew and blew, and then this happened. Nobody or nothing was hurt. All that was lost really was the car and the bridge. But what went wrong? What could have been done to stop this concrete and rebar bridge from falling down just by wind? The effect that you saw there is called resonance. This is when an object or material is made to oscillate at a set frequency, which is known to have a higher amplitude. So instead of shaking, having small oscillations, at this frequency it would oscillate at a huge amplitude in comparison to normal. Every material has a set frequency, even my body has this set frequency, and this frequency is called natural frequency. A lot of these factors could be calculated using a number of formulae. On screen you can see so many formulae, but you probably have no idea what they mean, and we don't have time to go through all of them. But if you wish to know more about each one of these formulae, I'm sure you can ask your teachers, or there's many online resources you can go and find out. But I wish to focus a little bit on acceleration, speed, and displacement. The three formulae that you see somewhere on the screen. When you look at these are part of the definition of SHM, where you can go between each one of these formulae and derive the whole definition of simple harmonic motion. As I explained earlier, when velocity was zero, the acceleration was maximum, and the displacement was also the maximum, but on the opposite side. And since simple harmonic motion is a sinusoidal relationship, you can easily graph between all three of these formulae. How? Well, if you work out one of them, if you worked out the displacement at each set time, you can use the displacement to work out what the graph of velocity looks like. How? Well, displacement is maximum at one point. This means it's at a minimum for the velocity, as I explained. So velocity is going to be 0 at that point. We can plot both of these, maximum 0. And with this, we know the acceleration is going to be maximum on the opposite side. There's the maximum. We can plot that. Now, if we watch the spring move to its minimum point, we know that the displacement now is at 0. We also know that the velocity is at its maximum, pointed in this direction. So we can plot that as the maximum negative. And we also know the acceleration is 0, so that's 0. And we can go on and on between each stage of what we see and easily plot out these three sinusoidal graphs. But do you see the similarities between them? We've again seen the definition of SHM just through these graphs. But there's so much more to learn about simple harmonic motion. So much more. We've barely scratched the surface. You can find out so much more online, textbooks, libraries, and so on. But I've been Simon. Have a good one.